Happy Friday. We made it again. I don't know about you guys, but I'm starting to get a little spring fever. Starting to think about summer and time off, travel, things like that, and it's all exciting. So these are some tough days. I know that for my kids, for sure, as they climb through the last part of the school year. The stock market this week has actually been pretty interesting. Contrast that to the last several weeks where there's not a lot been going on. This week, exact opposite. We've had three big things this week to consider. One, corporate earnings for a lot of key companies for the first quarter were released this week, and they were all fairly positive, and the market reacted. Second, the Trump tax plan was released. It was a one-page document, so there's a lot of details that are going to have to come out on that, but there's two big things with the Trump tax plan. One wants to simplify the individual, family, joint tax brackets. Right now we have several. He wants to bring it down to 3, 10, 25, and 35%. We don't know where those brackets are going to fall at this point. I think you can go back to his tax proposal during his campaign and look at where they were then, but that'd be a dangerous assumption to make that that's what's going to carry forward now. But we know that he doesn't want to harm the middle class, which would imply that the 10% bracket's going to have to expand, and the 25% bracket's probably going to have to expand upwards up into what used to be the 30+% brackets. So hopefully that's the case. Hopefully that the middle class doesn't get harmed by a simplified tax bracket arrangement, but we don't know. We haven't seen the details. It was literally a one-page doc. It looked a lot like this. The other thing is corporate tax rates. 15% is what he's trying to do. There's a lot behind that as well. Don't have any details other than we know that corporate tax rates historically, the lower they are, the more money corporations make, the better the stock market does. There's a lot to be seen on that, and we'll keep an eye on it. The other thing was just this morning the GDP was released, and the target was 1%, and it came in at 0.7%. They always adjust this number after the fact, though, so day one release of that GDP doesn't necessarily mean it was that far off, because it could go up, could also go down. But being off 30% tells us a couple things. The economy might not be running as hot as folks thought. But two, if you've been concerned about interest rates, that might be a decent sign that they aren't going to climb as fast as some thought would, because the Fed's paying really close attention to the GDP. And that's just one measure of the health of the economy, the GDP. There's a lot of other things like unemployment, corporate earnings, you name it. But the GDP, a little bit off at 30%. But again, that number could be adjusted. So from us, from Strategic Advisory Services, we have our blog and we put out articles regularly. One article that we're about to release we think is interesting, hopefully you do too, is do you need a financial advisor? And I've never really been directly asked that question, do I need a financial advisor? It's always just comes up in conversation. And I like to equate it to an analogy. I love working on my truck, on the cars we own, and it's a passion of mine since I was a kid. I like to do it. But just like hiring a financial advisor, I'm a do-it-yourselfer when it comes to cars, trucks, things like that. But I don't have to. I could hire a mechanic to do it. But to do my own work on my truck, it requires a lot of time. I have to research to figure out, one, what's the problem that I'm having. Two, I've got to make sure I've got the tools in order to solve the problem, the parts as well. And the last thing, the time to actually get into the truck, underneath the hood or wherever the problem is, and actually do the work. And I got to say, it's getting really hard to come by that time in order to do it well. It takes a lot of hours, and when you have, like me, when you got 3 young kids and things like that, I don't have the time to put into it. So the risk I run is if I don't put the time into it, diagnose the problem correctly and fix it correctly, of course the problem could just get worse or the truck could break down. It's just like hiring a financial advisor. You can do it yourself. I mean, there's books, there is Google, there are blogs, there's YouTube videos, there's all sorts of things on how to plan well financially, whether you're talking about investments or other types of financial planning. It's out there. But you got to take the time to research and do it. And the other thing is, sometimes when you get underneath like the truck and you're trying to solve a problem, you can fix the brakes, but something might be causing the brake problem that you don't see. And that's the same thing financially. Sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So it's important to have somebody in your court that can see the big picture, that can ask you questions that you didn't think that you needed to be asked. And that's the way I look at it. Is you can do it yourself, but you don't have to, and you probably don't have the time. And the last is the passion. I love working on my truck. It's a stress reliever for me. I'm passionate about it. I love doing it. If you aren't passionate about dealing with your finances, which I don't know a whole lot that are, you should hire somebody that is, that's going to help you get to your goals, help you see the big picture. So check that out on our blog. We're going to release that here in a few days. We hope you're enjoying these videos. We've certainly enjoyed the feedback. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.